You're listening to the Business Mike podcast. Amazing interviews with entrepreneurs and industry thought leaders.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Mike podcast. My name is Daudi Mugabi and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Kevin. Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and let them know a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. I'm Kevin Wilkins. I'm the founder and CEO of Trepwise. Trepwise is a strategic planning organization that focuses on purpose-driven work, meaning we work with organizations that really want to make a difference, want to make an impact in their community or in their ecosystem. We work with nonprofits, we work with foundations, we work with public agencies, we work with corporate social responsibility programs. And the goal is how can we maximize their impact in terms of what they're trying to achieve. We do three things as part of that. We focus on strategic planning. So that's planning within an organization to see if they can maximize what they want to do and to do it effectively and efficiently. We do systems planning. So we work across organizations to address some sort of community need. And then finally, we do a lot of organizational effectiveness work. How can we strengthen your organization to ensure what you do is as effective and efficient as possible? My background, though, was primarily corporate. So the first part of my career was in Procter Gamble. So I started in packaged goods. And then I moved into financial services in Boston, where we spent 20 years working in that space. In 2010, we had the opportunity to move to New Orleans, and the family wanted to do this. My wife is born and brought up in New Orleans. So the idea of going home was very appealing to her, although we did love being in Boston. Apparently, in the fine print of any marriage license, when you marry someone from New Orleans, is that you will ultimately end up there. And it took us 28 years to get there, but we ultimately did. And we've been here now 15 years. When we moved here, there was a lot of community need still really relevant after Katrina. Now, Katrina had been over like 4.5, 5 years prior. But there was still a lot of need. The cameras had gone home and the money had dried up. But there was a lot of need in terms of nonprofits wanting to continue to make a difference. I was brought in by an organization to assess a foundation to assess the organizations that they had been investing in or been giving grants to, because they were worried about the sustainability of organizations that they were supporting. And that's a scary space to be in, both as the nonprofit and as the funder. You want things to be, streamlined. We fund, you make an impact. We continue to fund, you continue to make an impact. But in a post-Katrina world, that's not what the landscape looked like. And I remember saying to the foundation, I'm not the nonprofit person. I have most of my career has been in for-profit work. And I've sat on boards, but I've never really worked for a nonprofit specifically. And they're like, exactly. We would love to have your business acumen assess what's going on with this nonprofit, treating it like, a really structured, well-oiled organization. And that gave me an insight. Suggesting, maybe I can help this community and help the nonprofit organizations and help them make an impact and work together more in a better, more cohesive fashion. And really understand how they could be more effective and efficient with doing what they do. So the what was really important. The how became very important as well. How can we support you to do the work you need to do to make an impact? And that's what we've been doing now for the last 13 years.
All right. You mentioned the sustainability bit of it, how you can have an impact that goes on for a long stretch of time. So where do most nonprofits get it wrong, or what advice can you share with us to help us, as we start a project, have that foresight and systems in place to keep it going?
Yeah, it's a great question. I often say, vision without a plan is simply hope, and hope is not a strategy. So I think it's amazing to have some charismatic leaders have big visions and clear missions in terms of what they do. However, things get derailed because they don't literally have a plan to get there. So if I have this vision that I am really clear on, that I'm articulating, that I can rally people around, that's awesome. But the best ideas poorly implemented get you nothing. And if you have a really good idea, if you've got a really good vision and you can implement it flawlessly, that can get you everything. So people tend to fall in love with the ideas. They tend to fall in love with the vision or the mission. What I say is you need to fall in love with the implementation plan of how you bring this to life. You have a bunch of ingredients as an organization. You've got advocates, you've got board members, you've got employees at times, you've got a visionary leader, you've got a good reputation, whatever the ingredients are. You've got technology you can use. How you put together all those pieces into a cohesive plan that allows you to get to a goal that addresses your vision and is measurable is really, really important. It's hard work. Measuring change is hard. Getting the right metrics in place can be challenging. Doesn't mean it can't be done by any means. Everything you do should be measured, let's be clear. But it's not necessarily intuitive. How do you solve hunger in the community? And what exactly do you measure? How do you ensure that we are living with water in a really responsible way? How do we ensure that youth that are part of the youth master plan are on the right pathways to change their economic status? So the devil really is in the details. So you have a lot of programs that are being funded, and you need to make sure that these programs are well defined, have clear expectations, have clear goals aligned to them, have clear ingredients that are being put together in a certain way. And it tells the story that you wanted to tell in terms of the impact you're making.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming one of the ways you can do that is by having strategic partnerships whereby you go at it with somebody else that can complement what it is that you specialize in. Have you seen that as a strategy that maybe helps with the sustainability?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that kind of falls into the systems work. There are lots of organizations. For example, we did the Whole Health Louisiana plan, which is about dealing with trauma, building a trauma-informed ecosystem that help children both prevent trauma from happening, but also understand the trauma that happens, recover from it, and begin to really thrive in their lives. That was a major initiative across the state. It was funded by the governor's wife, her foundation, back several years ago. And bringing organizations together that touch that issue, whether it be youth trauma, whether it be household dynamics that people work with, whether it be the causes of the trauma, which could be violence or hunger or economically driven, to the healing from the hunger, people who are like really working with organizations to help people recover in an effective way, bringing them all into one room, over 100 organizations into one room who are touching the whole health Louisiana, who are touching the youth of Louisiana. We were number 49 for child welfare, number 49 in the country in child welfare. The mantra was that we can do better. And by working together, we can do better than any of us can do individually or independently. Now, we are in a funding environment where I think that becomes even that much more important. How do we work together to make this collective impact that we want to make? When I first started this, as I said, New Orleans had so many nonprofits. In the post-Katrina world, people wanted to come here and save the world, and they did amazing things, and they spent time and they invested money and time and resources to try to bring New Orleans back. And lots of people stayed. I mean, lots of people stayed and were really invested in the city. And there were a lot of them. I think we had more nonprofits per capita than in any other city in the country at the time. And what I was noticing is that people love their vision and people love their mission statement, and they're very clear as to how their mission and vision are different than the organization over there that's doing similar work. And so people were not inclined to work together in an intuitive fashion. I mean, New Orleans is a very friendly and welcoming and caring community. And at the same time, like my organization is my organization, and we're doing the specific work, and I don't need to be working with other organizations because I'm very clear in terms of our mission and vision. I've got my funding for it. Okay. Well, as the funding dries up or the funding changes, you're either going to work with others in a more effective way, or you might not survive. You might shut down. And you don't want that as the outcome, right? So how can we collectively bring organizations together around a common issue and show them how working together makes the collective that much stronger? But it's a different mindset. You fall in love with your idea. You fall in love with your vision. It's your organization. It would be like someone coming to Trepwise and saying, I think you should merge with that organization because they do planning work too. I think my initial reaction might be, I think we're good, but I appreciate the recommendation. And now doing the systems work, I feel like, yeah, you know what? If there's another organization out there that's doing this kind of high impact consulting work that really is maximizing organizations' effectiveness, and they're doing it in a different space, but they're doing it similarly, why don't we work together? Maybe collectively we can make a bigger impact. So even from my own personal optics, I am very open to meeting new organizations, seeing where they are, and seeing how we can best collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to zero down on the word funding that you used there, especially in this economic climate. If somebody's out there and they're trying to start an initiative and they need funding, what are some of the things that they need to have in place in order to attract that funding? In other words, what is it that funders are looking for before they release that money?
Wow, how much time do we have, Donnie? The funding is a heavy topic right now. Oh, where do we start? So we know with a lot of government and political policies that are being put in place, there are implications pretty immediate in terms of the impact the policies have on nonprofits. So we've all seen what's going on in higher ed with grants being cut for research purposes and jobs being lost and the organizations kind of pivoting and rethinking about how they view research and the type of research they want to do. In the nonprofit space, in the organizational space for youth, AmeriCorps plays such a huge role, and AmeriCorps funding is very much at risk. Environmental funding is very much at risk. So the nonprofits that work in the environmental space, they have to think about what type of funding they need to have and what type of programming they should have in moving forward. So and things change every day. So sometimes there's like AmeriCorps is going away and other days maybe AmeriCorps is not going away. So there's like a lot of uncertainty around some of these government policies, and it feels chaotic. And it's hard to operate in chaos. So what we do for organizations is we do some breathing exercises. Let's take some deep breaths together here. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be responsive to the environment in which we are operating. And we need to do so in a way that's methodical and in a way that provides scenarios for positive outcomes. Oftentimes when you are reactive and when you're living in chaos, being reactive is very normal. You're often operating on feeling. So when someone reacts to something, it's a feeling. And like they're scared, they're frustrated, they're angry, they're just being reactive. We've all seen it. We've all experienced it as human beings, right? When you're reacting on feeling, you might not be making the best decisions because emotion gets in the way. When you're responding to a situation, responsiveness is based on thought. Reactivity based on feeling, responsiveness based on thought. So how do we ensure that we are responding to the environment in which we are operating in a very strategic and methodical way? We don't need to fire everyone today. We don't need to rename ourselves. We don't need to move to the Gulf of America. We can all take a deep breath and understand exactly what the potential implications are. Especially with chaos and things being uncertain, you have to do scenario planning. So what are funders looking for? I think they're looking for organizations that are thoughtful and that they are responsive and that they are very clear on what their mission is and that they use the money super effectively. And if they are doing something that's counter to the American agenda, for whatever exactly that means, how do they pivot and ensure that they can still continue to do the work, but maybe they need to do the work in a different type of way and in a way that might be easier to fund. So organizations that I've seen be successful are the ones that are able to pivot, that are able to make some decisions, they don't go unscathed. Perhaps people do need to get laid off if budgets are decreased, but at least they've done it in a really strategic way to ensure that they continue to make a flavor of the impact that they've made before. Or they can find other funders who might be aligned to a certain program. Or you do a program redesign that allows you to make the impact, but you maybe are doing things slightly differently. Or maybe you look at combining with another organization because together you could be stronger and you could streamline some stuff. So there are lots of responsive ways of living in this chaotic world. And all we say to organizations is do not get caught up in the emotion. I know it's hard. I know it is hard. But do not get caught up in the emotion. Do not get caught up in the chaos. Understand what you're able to control and what you're not able to control, and shift from feeling to thought. And when you're living in thought and you're living in responsiveness, the organization will be okay. Doesn't mean it's going to survive in the way it currently looks. Doesn't mean that it's going to have not to make changes, but all actions that you define will be for the benefit of the vision and mission you've put forward.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that much better. Thank you so much, Kevin, for that. I just now want to pivot to the corporate side of things. So imagine an entity, it's a profit-making entity, and they want to give back to the society, to the community, and have a few projects that they do in that regard. What I've noticed, at least where I am here, is some of them do it for the publicity. So they'll plant a tree, donate a few dollars here and there just to look good. But there isn't that long-term sustainability. So what would your advice be for an entity, a corporate entity, in terms of having sustainable impact on their communities?
That's a great question. We are living with a generation in the workforce who are looking to make more than a paycheck. We're looking at a generation who really wants to make a difference. My children are among this generation, who will work really hard, maybe even take a little less salary if they feel that their organization's really making a difference. And you don't need to be a nonprofit or foundation to make that difference. You can work for a for-profit organization that really values social responsibility, that really wants to make a difference that's aligned with who they are as an organization. So what we often say is understand that the generation you are hiring want to work for an organization where their actions can be aligned with making a difference in the company as well as in the community. So if that be the case, performative philanthropy doesn't tend to work. Like, let's go have a photo op and clean up the streets on a service day. Well, it's nice, it's kind to clean up the streets. It's nice to allocate your resources to do that. So I'm not minimizing it, but it's more episodic. It's more transactional than relational. And I think organizations in the corporate space want to be more relational. They want to be relational with their clients. They want to be relational with the communities in which their clients live. They want to be relational with the communities in which their employees live. They know that they want to build relations with their employees to make a difference in the community. So a tree planting for optics is performative and not sustainable. An organization that's committed to making sure that no one goes barefoot. If you're donating shoes, with every shoe you pay, that you buy rather, or that you sell. One more time, every shoe that you sell, you give a shoe away. That's really interesting. That's a real commitment, right? Or having pro bono programs where you're providing your services for free for organizations that might not be able to afford them, and do it in a sustainable way. Allowing your employees to do pro bono work. That's great. Doing a matching program for your employees. So if my employees give $500 away a year, I will match them $500 to whatever causes they want me to do. Words are cheap. Behaviors speak volumes. So an organization can say they care about the community, they care about social impact, they care about philanthropy, but look at the actions. If the actions are simply planting a tree, then perhaps how much they care, ? Would be discussed. if they're building relational models and partnering with nonprofits out there to really make a difference in the communities in which they operate, to make their consumers' lives better, and the employees see it, and the employees can be part of it, that's when change comes in a meaningful way, and the role of the corporation can have a major impact in terms of making that change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kevin, I could talk to you all day, but our time is constrained. I just gotten into the conversation, but as you know, with these podcasts, we need to have them at a time that's just enough for someone to retain their attention. But before we go, Kevin, I'd like to ask you, how can people connect with you? How can they learn more about Trepwise? Where can they find you online? And how wide do your services go? Is it just in your state? Is it across the country, across the globe? Just give us those details.
So we are international. We're working across the country. We're working in Canada at this point, really partnering with those organizations that want to make a difference. If you're a board member of a nonprofit, if you're an executive director of a nonprofit, if you see the value in planning, if you want to continue to do measured impact work, I would encourage you to look at what we do. It's trepwise.com, Trepwise, trepwise.com. That website will tell you everything that we do in a really accurate way. And we'll also talk to you about like what we stand for as an organization. We are very mission, vision, and values oriented, and we live them every single day. You can also find me on LinkedIn, KN Wilkins. And you can also reach out to me in email, kevin@trepwise.com. And I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. And once again, happy anniversary. Congratulations and all those years. That's sustainability in action, right there.
That is sustainability. That's a great way to end. I appreciate that. I'll make sure my wife knows that she was brought into this.
Okay. All the best, Kevin.
Thank you so much.